Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It is Drew, and today I am bringing you another book review. And in this video, I am going to cover Completing College, Rethinking Institutional Action by Vincent Tinto. And if you're not familiar with Tinto, Tinto is an instrumental figure in terms of student completion, who goes to college, and how we help students succeed and student success overall. So this was a really great book written by a person who has extensive history in researching and analyzing what institutions do. And so the whole purpose of this book is what we've done over time as a whole within higher education is while we have increased access to students of various socioeconomic backgrounds, we haven't really done much to move the needle in terms of college completion. So while we do have more students attending, we still haven't increased how many are actually graduating. And institutions are doing what they can to improve completion and graduation rates, but they don't always know what to do to meet the needs of students as students change, and they don't always know how to implement those things. And that is the essence of this book. So the book is actually broken up into four main pillars of sort of student success. And the first pillar is expectations, followed by support, and then assessment and feedback, and then finally involvement, or also known as engagement. And there is a chapter devoted to each one of these pillars, followed by some subsequent chapters which sort of enhance what these pillars have discussed. So when it comes to expectations, that chapter largely centers on the idea that students are going to rise or lower themselves to the expectations that they have set. So this is sort of their confidence or their ability that they know they're going to succeed in college. And this is greatly influenced by their interactions with faculty and staff. So expectations set by faculty in the classroom are going to really influence the behavior and subsequent performance of these students. So if you are setting high expectations in the classroom for all of your students, these students are more likely going to rise to the occasion and meet those expectations. And the opposite is also true as well. So that chapter really focuses on with the great influence that expectations of others and expectations of students themselves have on academic performance. The chapter that follows talks about the support. So this is the support systems, a lot of these programs and initiatives that you may see as best practices already. This is where the book goes into a little bit more detail. So some examples of that would be your summer bridge programs, first year seminars or basic skills courses, and a few other embedded supports or academic tutoring and things of that nature are also covered in this chapter. This chapter then goes into, or rather the book then moves into the assessment and feedback, which I thought to be probably the more interesting chapter, because this is what institutions, I think, really struggle with, or struggle to solidify or perfect. And this is looking at, do you know who your students are, how they're performing, where they're getting stuck, and what you're going to do about it? Some examples in the chapter, they talked about student learning inventories, learning portfolios to assess if students are actually learning what you claim to teach them or what you're supposed to be teaching them or what they are supposed to be learning. And then it also weaves into sort of predictive analytics and the data analysis and early warning systems. So you may not know, or you may have a general idea of the students, who they are coming into your institution, but are you able to identify where they're getting stuck and how they're getting stuck? And are you able to intervene in a timely manner to keep them from dropping out? So that was a very interesting chapter. And all of these chapters as a whole have solid examples of what current institutions are doing. And that is everywhere from 2-year community colleges to 4-year public and private universities. And so there is a full spectrum of examples for you to really pull from and see what fits at your institution. And these examples, the support of these examples really reminded me of The Agile College by Nathan Graw. And that was another book I appreciated in terms of offering some real life feedback on what these ideas, these theories, and the initiatives actually look like in practice. Now, the final pillar centered on the involvement stage. In that, it kind of seems like common knowledge if you work in higher education, or more specifically student affairs, and that is students who engage with faculty and staff and their peers at an institution are more likely to succeed. Those are the ones who are able to create a sense of belonging or establish a sense of belonging and create an identity or an affinity for their institution. Now, students can also create a sense of belonging and find their community within an institution of higher education, but they may not have any affinity at all for the institution itself. And that is fine, because that is still keeping them pursuing their academic program and can help push them through to graduation. So this chapter talks about that. It talks about what institutions do to sort of facilitate that belonging and building community. So examples include learning communities, service learning opportunities, the benefits of living on campus, and it also focuses on the importance of really trying to draw in commuter students and students who are working jobs as well, because those are the ones who are sort of on the fringes in terms of having the time or the desire to get involved or take advantage of the more traditional opportunities that college campuses offer. So there was a lot of value in that chapter. The chapters that supported these pillars talked about, well, implementation. So we often pilot a lot of these programs, but they eventually fizzle, usually after 1 year due to financial constraints or loss of interest. And a lot of these things could have had potential to be successful. So these chapters walk you through how you can sort of establish, starting small, or how you can influence key players to really gain momentum and buy-in to implement a lot of these initiatives and really try to sustain them over the long term. All of this in the book is supplemented by appendices, which include some demographic and enrollment data that provide context to what is discussed in the book. And while the demographics do change or have changed over time, I still think it contributes very well to what has been discussed. So if you're in higher education and you are new to retention or student affairs or student engagement, I would almost require you to read this book. And if you work in those fields, or if you work in higher education and you're familiar with this and you're looking for ways to improve, or you're looking for inspiration and new ideas, then I also highly recommend this book. It is a very great foundational piece to student success, and anyone who has a role in student success directly and even indirectly if you're faculty, which is another story, or perhaps another video. This book is for you. This book is very valuable. I almost think it's timeless. Granted, student needs change, but how we address that is still sort of the same. It's just how we deliver that changes with it. So solid. I loved this read. Like I said, if you work in these fields, go check it out. And make sure you hit subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.